Okay, I think I am live on YouTube now, yes? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna get off of Instagram now and I'm on YouTube. Head to the link now if you want to catch this live stream or these office hours. Yeah. All right. I was just on Instagram saying that this is my first time doing a live stream and using YouTube like this ever. So bear with me. I'm not too tech savvy, but I'm really hoping that we can get these live streams going kind of like on a weekly basis. So it feels like, what is it like? Hang on, I have so many things open on my desktop. So it feels like regular office hours, right? So you're talking to your professor and you can ask questions. So today's topic is about grad school. So 10 questions that you should be asking current graduate students if you're considering grad school. Okay, so before we get into the video, make sure to subscribe to this channel. If you're watching this later, leave a comment down below saying I subscribed and I will try to personally respond to you. For whoever logs in now, I'm not sure who is coming from Instagram. Hi, Jazz, I see you. Oh, I'm so glad you were able to make it. So yeah, feel free to add anything to what I have to say, things that you think are important. But okay, so let's get into it. The questions that I'm going to talk about today are really applicable to the context of PhD programs. So master's and MBA programs are a little bit different. They're 2 years long typically, and the funding is a little bit or very different actually. So all of these questions are just more applicable to a PhD program. These PhD programs tend to be longer as well, like 5+ years. So it is a much longer commitment that you're making. So the first 3 questions that I have actually are all about salary, because it is very different to apply to a PhD program than it is to apply to a master's program. And now I'm figuring out that I look like I'm looking somewhere else. Oh my gosh. Is that? Okay, let me try to fix that. I will get better, I promise you. Okay. So yeah, when you're applying to PhD programs, it's like you're applying to a job. It's a different process and frame of mind than it is when you're applying to school, because sure, you are a student, but you're also in this kind of mixed in between kind of identity where you are getting paid to do and be a very good PhD student and get a PhD. And how do you get a PhD? Well, you contribute knowledge to society. So your dissertation, the final project that you defend and that gets you your PhD, is a research project that advances your field in some way. And the PhD means you are able to do this, and now you can do it on your own. So you can move on and be a scholar all on your own. So, um, so yeah, it's a different even like frame of mind altogether. Okay, so anyway, so the first question that I have here, I wrote some notes to keep me kind of on track, is how do you feel about your salary? So, um, some of the best PhD programs pay you, right? And it depends on the discipline. I'm not sure all of what is the norm in different areas, but you, because it's like applying to a job, you're looking at salaries. What is going to be your salary? You also get benefits, the standard stuff. Um, so you want to ask this question, right? Like, how do you feel about your salary? Do you feel like the salary matches the location? Um, do you worry about each semester about not being able to afford things? You also want to ask, how are you supported with additional activities like attending conferences? Or what is that budget for your scholarly activities outside of the university? So aside from the standard salary and the benefits package, you also want to have a good idea about this, because those are professional activities that you want to be engaging in, but you of course want the support of the department. So that's the first one, right? Like, what is the salary? What is the situation here? The second question, do you have to supplement your graduate student salary by teaching classes or applying to fellowships and grants? So in my PhD program, we were not expected to teach our own classes. Our base salary covered, basic, standard of living there in the area, but and of course the tuition's fully covered. So the program pays the tuition because you're at the same time a student at the university, right? So you get that covered, and then I'm talking about your base salary. So that base salary was fine. Like I was able to live okay. Of course, it's not that much, especially if you have or are working in industry and now are coming back to school for a PhD program. You're probably going to get a salary cut, but you should be able to survive, right? You might not live in luxury, but you'll survive. But I did have some friends who needed to supplement those base salaries with additional activities. So they had to apply to fellowships or grants in order to pay kind of their way. So make sure that you understand what that looks like, because if there are these additional expectations of you needing to write grants or fellowships to fund your program, then you need to have that clear right away, because we want to plan ahead, right? If we know that we need this time, also we need to set time aside to write the grant and apply to all these fellowships. Well, that's going to add up, and you need to be clear about that, those expectations. Okay. How does your funding change from the beginning of the program to the later stages? That's question 3. See, the first are all about salary, but so this salary change from first, second, third year to when you're a candidate or in your 4th, 5th year. Do you get a lower amount of support? What does it look like? You also need to know this because sometimes it changes a lot, and in order to encourage you to move on and finish, you at the later stages, maybe you want to take an additional year or 2 to stay in the program, you might get a cut in your salary. Okay, so make sure you know that that's coming. Also figure out housing, because housing is another way that you get kind of this cut, right? So you won't get housing support. I lived on campus all 5 years of my PhD program, um, but you want to think about that, right? Like, are you supported all throughout, or do you maybe your final year you have to move out? In my case, that would have been really significant because I was in Southern California and it's really expensive there, right, to live outside of campus housing. So make sure you understand those things. Okay, so now we're going to get into other things related to the programs. My question number 4 is, how do you like working with your advisors? And I added this one here because you want to get a discussion started to get their opinions on what it's like working with professors there. So you might ask them, do you feel this is a collegial environment? Is there collaboration among students? Or is there, does it feel competitive among students? Sometimes, depending on the field or department, students might be applying for the same fellowships, applying for the same kinds of conferences, trying to publish in the same kinds of journals and things like that. So what does that translate to in terms of on the daily, right? Do you feel like you're in a part of a supportive environment, or does it feel a little bit more competitive? You also want to think about those things, because this being in a PhD program is not. So it's if we think about the metaphor of a race, it is not a sprint; it's a marathon. And you're in that marathon. You're going to have times where things are going to be great and you're going to be at the top of your game and things are going to be well. But there's also going to be times where you're feeling really low and things are not going great or as planned. And you want to have some support for those times too. So do your peers, are they friendly, right? Do they offer support, but a lot of times those things are, depend on each individual, but then also sometimes the culture of the department influences that. So is it collegial? How do you feel about working with your advisors? Are they supportive towards you? Are other professors supportive as well? How do you like working with different professors? Okay. Question number 5. How often does the department get together for professional or social events? This is also related to collegiality, right? So you're gauging how involved people are with that kind of a question. So does the entire department hold events? Maybe you where you collaborate together. We had in my program, we had these research festivals or research competitions where PhD students would display their research, and then the top posters would win a certain amount of cash. And so that was another opportunity to get together, hear each other's work, right? We also had dinners together. So every so often, a different professor, the idea was that a different professor would invite students to have dinner. So it was all the PhD students having dinner with all of the professors, and it was either at someone's home or at a restaurant. So that's great, right? That's an example of an environment where, professors really want to get to know students, and that's going to matter because if they know you and you feel this support, um, you're gonna feel more comfortable coming to them for questions when you're really struggling. Um, so so these questions are all about that for that reason, you know. So okay. Okay, question 6. What are the teaching expectations? Are you expected to teach full classes or just TA? So TA is being a teaching assistant. Um, so some programs require you to teach, and this is part of your salary. This is how you get that salary. Um, for my program, they did not require us to teach. So that was better for me as a PhD student because I didn't have to worry about preps every semester or about grading, right? Like having this full-time teaching job at the same time that I'm trying to do my research. So again, we want to think ahead of how is life going to look on a daily basis. Do I have teaching responsibilities as well as a graduate student? I had some colleagues at other universities teaching not just one class, but multiple classes, you know, as PhD students. So they would tell me what that's like, right? And it's definitely a lot of work, especially when you're just learning how to do all of this stuff. So that would be very difficult, but of course doable. I had some friends also in other disciplines at my university that had to teach full courses. For us, we just had the requirement to be a TA or a graduate assistant if we wanted. So I think I just had TA-ships. I don't remember what the graduate assistantships that I had. So all throughout my 5 years, I was a teaching assistant for undergraduate and MBA courses. And then in the summer before I graduated, I taught my own class. But that was because I wanted to do that, not because I had to live or afford my apartment, right? That was just because I wanted the practice, especially because I was going in the job market. So I wanted some experience with actually teaching a class. Okay. So next is a question about lifestyle. So how do you feel you're able to balance it all? You might get a sense of all of this with all these other questions that you ask. You know, if you're expected to apply to fellowships, grants, and teach full classes and do research, that's going to give you a good idea, right? Like how they might feel about balancing everything. But I really encourage you to ask these questions because a lot of times when you are asking current graduate students about what their program is like, they'll focus on the facts, right? Like, okay, this is the exact number salary. This is the amount of classes you have to teach every semester, or you know, just something about the process, like how long it is the average that people take to earn the PhD. But they're less likely to talk about how they feel as a part of the program, and that's really important too. So that's why I added this here. So how do you feel you're able to balance it all? Do you feel included? Who are your mentors? This you might get a lot of information here when you ask this question of who are your mentors, because for when I was a graduate student, there were a lot of peers, like my own friends, that were also graduate students that ended up being my mentors. They were just a few years ahead of me, and they were really helpful to me in that way. But you want to ask this because it also tells you a little bit about who are the people that they trust most in the department. If you get somebody who says, "Oh, the first person I go to is my advisor," that is a green flag for sure, because that shows like you trust them a lot with when you're feeling low and you're not feeling like you're going to be successful in the program. If your advisor is the first person you go to, that's telling you that the support is real, because they have a genuine relationship, like the way you would have with a friend. Okay. So number 8, post grad. You want to ask, what do people do when they graduate? If if you're graduating as a PhD, you also want to ask, are postdocs common? So when you graduate and you get your PhD, do people in this discipline or in this area, is it common for people to go on to get postdocs? Where are last year's graduates now? How about those that graduated 3 years ago? Where are they now? Okay, so you want to ask these questions too, because the academic job market across all disciplines is a wild thing. And so you want to know how that looks, right? Do people go on to become academics when they graduate from this particular school with this degree? Do they go on to into academia? Are they professors now? Are they happy where they are? Did they make tenure where they are? If they didn't make tenure, where their advisors continue supporting them through that? Because your advisor helps you get the PhD, but then you continue to have this relationship with them, and then they should help you, right, as a pre-tenured professor as well, continue to support you and help you, right? So if people who graduated had a really hard time doing the things that they wanted to do, why was that? Right? You want to get into these conversations too. So what do people do when they graduate? Number 9, how competitive is the job market in this field? So this is, across all fields, the job market is really difficult. But then on top of that, in some fields, there's just more jobs. In other fields, there are less jobs available. So you want to have a good idea of that before you commit to 5+ years, and then after that, right? You want to know, am I going to be able to get a job? Okay, or what are the chances? And this goes with the previous question, right? So how competitive is the job market in this field? What are the expectations? How many schools did you apply to? How many offers did you get? Or do people get? What is the norm? And then the last question I have here is, would you recommend a master's, MBA, or PhD program for me? So with this question, I'm assuming that you've already had some back and forth with this very gracious graduate student who is helping you through this decision, and they know what you want to do. So based on what you want to do, then they can better answer this question for you. So they can say, well, because it doesn't seem like you maybe are 100% sure that you want to do this kind of research or this kind of work, maybe apply to master's programs, fill it out, fill the discipline out. Maybe this ends up being not the right discipline for you or not the right kind of program. So go to the master's route, or in the business discipline context, maybe you're just more driven by business and you actually you want to be in industry, should you go for your MBA instead? So yeah, so I encourage you to ask this last question for to get everybody or all the different, at least a couple or a couple or more opinions of current PhD students, because if they're in it, then they're going to have a way different response to you than like I don't know, an admissions officer or an administrator. If they're in the thick of it, I think they're going to be a lot more real with you. So yeah, those are 10 questions that I have so far. I'm so happy, Jess, that you were able to be here. And yeah, so I have these questions. There's a lot to say for, what's the difference between a master's or PhD and what kind of discipline? How different is an MBA from a PhD? So there's a lot of these questions, right? But I'm going to try to keep these office hours short so that I can make these into videos to be posted on Facebook as well. So these sessions, I'm going to try to keep them at around 30 minutes. And then whenever I do have a guest, those might run longer just because of the conversation. So those might run about an hour, but I'll post those as well on YouTube. And I am not going to, try to do the whole shortening of the video and do these crazy animations and cuts and things like that. I'm sharing this information to whoever finds it helpful. You can listen to it at 1.5, 2 times speed. But yeah, so I look forward to hearing from you. If you have any particular questions, maybe specific topics that I can help you with, I'm happy to do that. So leave a comment down below if you have a specific kind of question related to graduate school or even at the undergraduate level as well. Maybe some tips on how to even start the research process of graduate school. I'm happy to help. And so these office hours are meant to feel like that. So like you have access to a professor and you can ask a professor all these questions. And I'm going to try to be here every week for weekly office hours sessions. I got this idea, as I explained in my last video, from my own students' questions, and then how I wish when I was a student that I could have this kind of easy access to a professor, right, and be able to ask them all these questions that I had. So I'm happy to be that for anyone who finds value in that. So anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.